Inner Peace Better Health, where real change begins with radical self awareness. I'm your host, Shreya, and today's guest is the fire starter, Tony Schmaltz, a powerhouse leadership coach, speaker, and the man behind Wake the Bleep Up. From losing it all twice to building a thriving life, Tony's message is simple but powerful. Everything is your choice. No more excuses, no more playing small. If you are ready to stop living on autopilot and start choosing bold, soul aligned success, this episode is your wake up call. So, welcome, Tony. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Tony, you say everything is your choice. Even when life hits hard, what does the kind of radical ownership look like in real time?
Well, in reality, everything that we have in our lives, everywhere we're at, is a result of choices we've made. And everything that happens in our lives from day to day is a choice. We have the choice to react the way we want to. For example, if you wake up one day and you're feeling very depressed about something, it's your choice whether you're going to stay depressed or if you're going to find a way to be happy. That's your choice. Even if things seem to be going very wrong, it's still our choice whether we're going to feel that way or not. We can take actions in our lives, whether it's watching motivational videos or listening to something exciting or finding something funny to watch. We have the choice whether we're going to stay in that mode or not. And same thing goes with everything in our lives. We have the life that we have because of the choices we made. So in reality, everything throughout our entire life is our choice.
Yes, yes, I truly agree. And I think that's such a fine line ownership without blame, but you're proving it's possible. And how do we start practicing it without slipping into toxic positivity or self blame?
Well, self-blame that's a tough one. There's a lot of people that believe in forgiveness and using forgiveness, and I believe in total acceptance, because when you when you start saying I need to forgive someone, even yourself, that means you're acknowledging that something wrong was done. And not that everything happened the way you would like it to happen or it could have happened or should have happened. However, we have the opportunity to have total acceptance. I accept everything that happened, right, wrong, or otherwise, and I'm moving on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing this. I think you have said that so beautifully. And you have lost everything twice. What mindset shift helped you to rise and not just recover, but rise stronger?
Well, mine was not just my own mind shift, but it was the people I had around me. They say that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, I've had some amazing coaches, some amazing mentors. I have an amazing wife, all of which were there to support when things were the worst. And it took a lot of reassurance from them when things were down in the dumps. I was actively having to make the choice that this is not how it's going to stay. I'm making the choice that we're going to do better. And I had a morning routine. I still have a morning routine, but I had a morning routine that started my day off positive, that helped create that positivity and create myself of who I was going to be. And by doing that and creating myself to be this powerful person each and every day, even when it seems like things are down, that person did get created. That person did come out. And from that, we were able to create possibilities and create the life that makes us both happy, makes us all happy.
Yes, yes. I've said that's so beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. And what is one question we can ask to ourselves in the middle of chaos to stay grounded?
In the middle of what?
In the middle of chaos.
I would just ask yourself, we can ask yourself, what was it like when things were really good? In life, we go through these ups and downs where things are really, really good and then things maybe not so good. And when we're in the not so good, we forget about what it was like to be in the good times. So ask yourself, ask yourself, what did it feel like when I was in that good time? What did it feel like when I had all of this? And remember that feeling and what that felt like, and then strive to get there again.
Yeah, yes. I think uh, most people wait for that clarity that you showed us, that it's something we choose to create.
Hmm.
And what keeps people stuck in may just doing through the motion, and how do you get them to snap out of it?
Well, most of the time when people are stuck, they're playing the victim. They're not taking ownership over their life. They're pointing the finger somewhere else. It's my boss, it's the government, it's taxes, whatever. They're pointing the finger somewhere else. When in reality, you just look inside, look at the mirror, look in the mirror, and back to having a choice. You can look in the mirror and say, "Look, I have a choice. I'm going to make this better." And so instead of blaming other people, take ownership. I'm here. I have this life. Nobody else controls my life. I do. And so I'm going to take action to get the life that I deserve, that I want, instead of pointing the finger at somebody else saying, "Oh, this is why I can't do it." No, that's not true. You have the ability to make everything happen for yourself. So don't point the finger somewhere else. Take ownership and responsibility over your life and everything about your life. And then if there's something you want to change, you take the action to change that. Whether it's finding a better job, whether it's starting a business or growing a business, whether it's finding the man or woman of your dreams, whatever that is, if that's what you're looking for and that's what you want, it's nobody else's responsibility. It's yours. It's yours to take action and make that happen for yourself.
Yes, I love that. I just loved your answer. And you have worked with people across industries.
Yeah.
What is the common thread in those ready to upgrade?
Uh, the most common trait, like for example, I just did a leadership workshop at Amazon a couple months ago, and the most common trait that I found amongst those leaders, those managers, was negative self-talk. They spoke negatively about themselves, about others, and they were creating this negative world around them. And so one of the principles we covered was the power of language, and the power of language can create your world. How we speak into the universe creates the world that's around us. And if we speak negative, we're going to attract negative to us. When we speak positive into the world and we speak positive about people, then it's going to create that positivity around us and that positive environment. And so part of that is part of the power of language I talk about acknowledgement. You know,
Yeah.
in our world, we can do 99 out of 100 things right, but we never hear about any of those 99 things. As soon as you do one thing wrong, that's when somebody gives you a hard time about it. But what if we started acknowledging all the right things that people did, and watch that empower them and empower yourself, because it's going to make you feel better about how you're recognizing this person. They're going to feel better, and the whole aura just uplifts.
Yes. Yes. I think that change starts when we stop asking for permission and we just introspect in ourselves and say good things for ourselves. And you coach around burnout, family, performance. How does saying yes to your truth affect the people around you, especially at home?
Wow. So my truth is really about putting myself and my family first. I don't get me wrong, I serve and serve and serve others, but if I don't look out for me and I don't look out for my family, then the rest of it's pointless. And so saying yes to my truth is about living what I'm talking about. It's living the creative life, creating things around me. It's speaking positive into the universe. It's speaking positive about people, including my kids, my wife, speaking, building them up and growing and helping them get better, and with the people around me. And so
Yeah.
when somebody in general wants to say yes to that truth and live a life of positivity versus negativity, they're going to see their whole world change. They're going to see their family life change. They're going to see everybody around them enjoy being around them more. And it's a struggle for a lot of people, especially people who are in a downturn and they're feeling very victimized and they're feeling down, negative. It's challenging, but when you make that choice and you focus on being positive and speak that into your world each and every day, it magically changes. It's almost like magic. And it takes time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But you have to practice it. But if you practice it day in and day out, within a month or two or three, you're going to see a whole different world.
Yes, yes. And what is your advice to leaders who are winning professionally but losing personally?
Well, if you're winning professionally, then there's something you're doing that's causing you to win. Look at what that is, and can you apply it to your personal life? Oftentimes, there's a lot that's it's a very, very common trait. Lots of people who are financially doing well, or they've got this big career, or they've got a good business, but their family life is a wreck, or they're burnt, like you said, burnt out or stressed out because they're not necessarily applying the same thing. I've got a new book coming out soon. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to Leadership. Is when you're being a leader, it's not just a leader in your business or in your company. It's a leader in every aspect of your life. It's leading with your spouse. It's leading with your kids. It's leading with your friends. It's leading with your family. It's being that leader that you are in the business. So if you're being successful in your business, there's no reason why you can't apply those same principles to your personal life and bring it all up to that happy level.
Yes. And that's leadership truth most people avoid, but thank you for going there. And what are the signs that someone is driving by fear and not failure?
If they're driving by fear, a good indicator is when somebody is a yes person, when somebody's a people pleaser, when somebody says yes to everything and everyone around them. That means that they're afraid of what other people are going to think. And so they're afraid to be themselves. They're not being themselves and who they can be the best of. It is, I tell people that the word no is a completely acceptable answer and it's a complete sentence. It's okay to say no. If it's something you really don't want to do, don't say yes. Now, I'm not saying go flat out say no, but you can say, hey, you know what? I'm really not going to do that this time, or I'm not interested in this time. Maybe another time, or you can, but don't say yes if you really don't want to say yes. I have some people I know around me. They're like, oh, I got invited to this cookout and I didn't really want to go, but I felt obligated to go. And I said, why? I said, if you didn't want to go, you could have said no. It's okay. Well, then they would have thought that I wasn't their friend. And I'm like, no, just explain that you weren't going to make it this time. It's not a big deal. And if they really are your friend, then they're going to be okay with it.
Yes. And the one you mentioned, that no is a very small word, but we really need to learn how to say that, because we often just fear and just overthink that if we don't say no, if we don't say yes and say no, how the society will accept. But it's a very small word, but one of the most powerful and impactful word in our life that we need to say. And also, what is one powerful refrain for someone afraid of outshining the version of themselves others are used to?
That is a great question. I would just say make the choice. Don't like keep talking about choices. Make the choice. I can't remember the name of the author all of a sudden, but there's an amazing book out there called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And there's nothing wrong with outshining yourself. If you have a vision for yourself that you want to be up here, don't stop here. Just keep going until you get here. And then you'll probably keep going. I like to tell people with their goals, I'm like, you should never, ever hit your 5-year or 10-year goals, because your goals should constantly be growing. As you start to get along, you should be growing your goals and continuing to grow. If that's what somebody wants, they really want to become a better version of themselves, then make the decision and do it. Don't worry about what other people think. And the people that are closest to you, like your spouse or your kids or whatever that is to you, have that conversation. Say, hey, I'm really looking to make this, to put us here and to put me here. Will you support me in that? And I guarantee you they're going to say yes. And if they don't, it's a different conversation, but I've never heard of that before. It's never heard of that before. So when you make that choice and if you really want it bad enough, the want to has to be there. If you really want it, you'll find the how. The want to is the strong part. The how to is easy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And thanks for sharing all this. I think the way you explains everything, it's so beautiful. And but some people keep pouring anyway, especially like women, parents, or caregivers, or like any other people. How do you teach people to reclaim their worth beyond their roles?
Well, the first thing I have people do, well, here's an exercise for you guys listening today that you guys can actually do yourself. I have people write down I start with 10 and then I go from there, but a lot of times it'll turn into pages, but I say, write down the top 10 things that you don't like about yourself. And so it's So it sounds negative, but we first start with write down the top 10 things that you're saying that you're beating yourself up for, that you're talking negative about yourself, your 10 top negative self talks. Now let's go through those one by one and we turn them around to a positive. Like somebody will say, I'm not very confident. I lack the confidence. And then we're going to turn that around. And that statement's now going to be, I am the most confident person in this world. I feel the fear and I do it anyway. And they're going to repeat that phrase over and over and over until it sticks in their brain. And when it does, they're creating that person in themselves. And so when you take all of those negatives that you're speaking about yourself and you turn those around into positives and you speak those regularly, your mind's going to grasp onto that and you're going to become that person that you're creating yourself to be. So that's usually the first step. When somebody's really in a negative down state, I always start with that. Let's look at all the things negative you're telling yourself and let's turn those around.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful and I think very accessible practice that everyone can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think thank you for sharing that with my listeners. And what is your message to someone who is deeply tired but doesn't feel allowed to rest?
What do you mean by doesn't feel allowed to rest? Let me make sure I'm on the right track here.
Yes, I mean, like there are many people who are going to maybe burnout or maybe they are physically and mentally very tired, but they think that if I rest, then something will happen. Like if they're parents or if they're the caregivers or if they're the woman, so they're like, okay, if I rest, then something in my family will not work. Like maybe who will cook or maybe who so something will remain if I take rest. So the rest is always the second option, but that is very much needed for their physical and mental health.
Okay. So it sounds like what you're saying is that these people are living in the fear of taking a break. They're living in the fear of
Yes,
resting because they're afraid something's going to happen if they take a break. Something's going to
yes,
change. That is going to go back. That right there, I would start with the same thing. What are you telling yourself? What are you afraid of? What are your fears that are keeping you from resting? Why are you not resting? And they're going to say, "Oh, my parents. Oh, my kids. Oh, this." I said, and then I'll ask them. I'll say, "Has any of that ever happened?" In some cases it might have, but very, very rarely has any of those fears ever actually happened. I'm like, okay, cool. Your kids are 12 years old and they've never had a problem when because you stayed up later and they still never had a problem. So what's keeping you from actually going to rest? Well, it might happen. I'm like, the odds of that are very, very low. Why don't you try it? Let's see what happens. And then they do that a couple times. They get their rest. And the first few times they don't, they toss and turn, or if we're talking about sleep, their mind's still going, but they try. And then when it actually hits them and they're like, oh, wow, everything is fine. Everything's okay. And they're able to actually relax. You see the show, you can have a conversation with somebody. You can see their whole body just kind of like, just calm down as they're coming to this realization that everything is okay. Everything works out. I mean, it does for the mass majority of human beings on this planet. Everything works out when it needs to work out, especially if you believe it's going to work out.
thank you for sharing this. I think this is a very much needed thing for I think many people around the world, especially who are parents, moms, dads.
Mm-hmm.
And also with that, I want to include another question. If someone listening and feels like they are stuck or small or scared of doing something, what is the first bold action they can take today to change the trajectory of their life?
this is this is the one that I really have to push on people quite a bit. And it is just like I said earlier, it is take action anyway. Even when you don't want to take action and you're afraid to take action anyway. Now, I'm not saying if you think you need to do this big of a project, no, start with something like this. Start with one piece. Let's say you've got this big project. Let's say you want to, I mean, random example. Let's say you want to build a website, but you're overwhelmed by the idea because you have to get pictures, you have to write the copy, you have to find a plat. Start with one thing. Start with one thing. Go find the platform and sign up for it. Cool. You've taken that step. And then the reason why I say this is an action spawns more action. Action creates more action. People are like, "Oh, I don't have any motivation to do this." Well, then just do it, because when you do it, and a lot of people can relate to this. You know how sometimes your house, you have to clean your house and you're dreading it. You're like, "Oh, I don't really want to clean my house." But then you clean the kitchen, and now all of a sudden you clean the living room, and now all of a sudden you clean the bathrooms, and before you know it, you've cleaned the whole house, and you're like, whoa, what happened? That's because you started taking action even when you didn't want to. And once you started taking action, you wanted to keep taking action, and it just keeps on going and going. So when you're afraid to take the action, start with something small, but take an action towards that goal and watch how that starts to grow. How one action turns into 4 actions, which turns into 12 actions, which turns into 25 actions. And next thing you know, you're at your goal looking back going, where did that time go? What happened? It's because you started by that little action at the beginning.
Yeah. And with that, also, my next question is a little bit attached. For someone who is already on the rise, how do they stay grounded in peace while chasing that greatness?
That is another great question. And there's a mentor of mine, his name's Steve Chandler. In fact, if you haven't read his books, I recommend any of them. He talks about having an average day, because most people are out there trying to make their day extraordinary, spectacular, outrageous, amazing. He talks about having an average day, because if you spend all of your time trying to make every single day extraordinary, that's when you burn yourself out. He said to me one time, he's like, "Hey, have an average day." I'm like, "What?" Like, "What do you mean?" And he explained it like that. If you just do, we talked about the little things. Like if you've got a big project, instead of trying to do 3 hours worth of work one day, maybe do 1 hour worth of work. And you may consider that average. And for some people it is, some people it isn't. But if you stick to that average and you do that 1 hour every day, then you prevent the burnout, but you still get to your goal. You're like, "Well, I want to get to my goal faster." I'm like, maybe, except you're also going to burn yourself out in the process. And if you burn yourself out, you're never going to get to your goal. So you've got to start with the baby steps, take little bits at a time. And as you get more efficient, as you realize where your burnout point is, or you don't even feel it coming, you might be able to add a little bit more. Okay, now I'm good with an hour. Hour is average. Now I'm going to make it an hour and a half. And until you start to get to that point where, well, I'm like, okay, cool, back it off, back it off. You're getting stressed. Let's take it back a notch and find that medium, find that average. I can do this much every day, still hit my goals, still spend time with my family, still get my rest, not have my burnout, and be happy in the process.
Yes. I think this is the thing you said, that have an average day. We just all chase for having a great, outrageous, a beautiful day, but it's so beautiful to have an average day. I think we have never thought of that. But thank
Right.
you for sharing this beautiful thing with us. And I think ownership with peace, power, and presence, that's a grade we all want.
Right.
And this is a wonderful conversation with you. I think you are a wonderful person and you have the plethora of knowledge. And thank you for sharing that. And if my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Well, the best way is go to my website, which is www.tonyschmaltz.com, TonySchmaltz.com. And from there, there's lots of free stuff. There's videos, there's a contact me page, and there's even a free survey that you can take. A 3-minute survey will find out if you're getting close to burnout and what's getting you there. And so then you can evaluate where you're at and where in your life, because there's different sections, where in your life you're actually closer to burnout than others. And a lot of people have been just happy taking that because it's absolutely free. There's no obligation for anything. And you get to find out where you're at.
Yes, yes. And I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and have this very quick burnout test, because this is wonderful and you are a wonderful person. And to all my listeners, Tony Smalls just reminded us that we are not waiting on life. Life is waiting on us. Every choice, every thought, every step, yours to own. So if you are done with excuses, it's time to rise, rebuild, and lead your life like you mean it. Until next time on the Inner Peace Better Health, choose boldly, live lively.